Hi guys, it's Julie. Welcome back to Pages and Pens. Today I am here with my September vlog style wrap up. Let's jump right into that. I'm sitting in front of my computer and I did want to update you on a couple books that I read in September already. It is the 6th and I have finished 4 things. Who even am I? All of them have been audiobooks, but I'm in the middle of a ton of physical books and it's just audiobooks are working for me right now. So I'm going to go over the 4 things that I read so far and I'll tell you a little bit about them because I realized in August vlog style wrap up I'd lost some of my early footage and I didn't want to do that this time around, so I'm trying to be better. So the first thing that I read was actually Guarding His Obsession, and I don't know who that's by, but I'll put a cover up here. That was a really quick, like hour-and-a-half audiobook, smutty book. It was fine. It was, I think I gave it 3 stars. It was super insta-love, super possessive, not my thing. It was about a girl who had a stalker and a guy who was hired to be her bodyguard, and I think within the first day or 2, they were engaged. It was a lot. Then we had Ice Planet Barbarians. That was an audiobook. I also forget the author for that, but I'll put that up here. I did already download on Hoopla book 2 because they are on my Hoopla, which means they should be on yours if your library subscribes to Hoopla. It is about a ship full of women who are kidnapped by aliens and then crash land on an ice planet. And then our main character goes wandering off from the crash site to try to go get help and food and runs into a barbarian who then mates with her. And now all the other ice barbarians would also like to mate with the human women. It is a time, and it's not a bad time. I gave it 4 stars. The next 2 are not smutty reads. I did listen to Daughter of the Siren Queen by Trisha Levenseller. This, I don't know if this is a duology. I think there's another one in this series. The first book in this, Daughter of a Pirate King, was in an Owl Crate book box and I read it and really enjoyed it. Really did enjoy this. I have it physically, listened to it in an audiobook. For pirate stories, which are not my thing, they're super feminist, super sex positive, like really cool. I love them. I love Alosa. I love her crew. It's a solid series. It's a fun fantasy series and it's really, really quick. The House by Christina Lauren, and I also started Sublime. So The House and Sublime are their young adult thriller. The House is about a girl who has this childhood crush and then she gets sent away to school, comes back, and the guy that she has a crush on, now they're going to start this relationship. And he lives in this really eclectic, eccentric house. Nobody really knows much about his parents, and turns out House, capital letters, is sentient, and when he gets hungry, food shows up, and when he gets cold, the fireplace goes on, and when he goes to bed, blanket, capital blanket, tucks him in. That's the way that he's always remembered it. He doesn't remember a parent. He remembers this house that's just always cared for his needs. There's a cookie jar with money all the time if he needs it. But then they start dating. House does not like the girl he's dating. When she's talking about the house, it's all lowercase, but when he talks about it, it's like uppercase. Like, dining room is a person. Just the weirdest take on a haunting and a thriller horror. And I think I'm gonna go 3 stars. And then I started the audiobook for Sublime, which is about a boy who falls for a girl, but she's a ghost, and the only time he can physically touch her is when he's near death, so he starts trying to have all these near-death experiences so that they can be together physically, I think. So not so bad so far. I'm also reading There Will Come a Darkness. I am reading The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. I'm not loving that. Starting Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. I'm not far into this and I am super intrigued. I just know I'm going to lose myself in it and want to finish it all in one day. So I think this might be a weekend read this weekend. I'll check in with you guys later. Bye. I finished some books. A lot of these have annotations and tabs and beautifulness. One was a totally average 3.5 read. One is a 1 star and one is a 5 star. So where do we want to start? Let's start middle of the road and then I will rant and I will rave. The OK Witch. This one is by who? Emma Steinkellner. It's a middle grade graphic novel about a girl who just desperately wants to have something exciting happen in her life. She's kind of getting bullied at school, and then she finds out she's a witch, and there's this whole history with her mother and witches and this town which seems like it's like New England-y, and there's a ton of like what seems like it's probably actual history built into this with the colonization of the US and witches and witchcraft and witch hunting. It seems like it's a history lesson masked by a graphic novel, and it kind of takes you out of the story, at least for me. I would imagine it would do the same for a kid, help kids learn in a fun way, but for me I was just kind of like, meh, it's fine, it's cute. The art style was really adorable, it's diverse. We're gonna get into my rant, and then we'll get into the book that I really, really loved. All right, first up is my rant, and that is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh, which I read and I tabbed, and I have like, I think purple for random stuff. The oranges were like LOL moments, because like our main character is really snarky and kind of like gives as good as she takes, and there were some funny moments. And then blue were for like quotable things that I thought I could use for the review. But all in all, I almost DNF'd this like 5 times, and then today I was like, you know what? I'm writing, I'm so busy, I am not reading as much as I used to, so I need all of the finished books I can get for my TBRs and my wrap-ups, etc. I'm gonna finish this. I'm just gonna push through. I'm gonna finish it because I want to see how it ends. I want to see where she was going. This was pitched as like, vampires are coming back, vampires in New Orleans. It's gonna be this like romantic historical fiction with vampires. It's gonna be like really atmospheric and really amazing. Page 295. 295. We're this far in. It's the first time the word vampire is mentioned. There's one casual mention back here where it's like, oh, these things could exist, or there's lore that these things exist in New Orleans, and then that's it. But the first time there's like a confirmed, oh, I'm a vampire, it's a vampire, is this far into the book. Okay, this is not a standalone, but that's ridiculous. As for the setting and the New Orleans like vibe of it all, there's one part of this when they're at a parade, like it's carnival season. There's one part of this when they're at a parade that felt really atmospheric and alive for me. Other than that, it was so flat and so dead, and I've never been there, so maybe I just don't get it. But I know that it's this really vibrant, really alive place, but we're also looking at 1872. So even the people that have been there are kind of like, they might see the older historical landmarks, just didn't come alive for me at all. There's also a cajillion Shakespeare references in this book, and I just am not a huge Shakespeare person. I don't dislike Shakespeare, but there's so many quotes and so many references to the Bard and to Shakespeare that I'm like, who cares? It doesn't add anything to the story for me. We also have a main character in Celine who takes this like immense pride, and it is slammed in your face and repeated over and over and over again that she's not like other girls. She's not prim and proper, and she revels in the darkness, and she revels in danger. And there's a part of her that feels like she might actually be evil, but that she kind of wants to feed that part, and she doesn't mind the darkness, and she doesn't mind the danger, and she's not meek, and she speaks her mind, and it's so progressive. And back then, I get it, it was, but it is repeated over and over and over and over. We do have one character who I love, who is Odette, bends gender roles, and sometimes her hair is slicked back really tight and she's in men's breeches, and other times she's in these beautiful glittering ball gowns, or other times she's in a ball gown but there's a slit and underneath are breeches, and she's really like walking that gender line, which is really cool. There are on page queer characters. There is just a lot of diversity within the story in terms of race and gender fluidity and sexuality, and that's fantastic. But this book was so boring. It fell epically flat, and it was so disappointing. It was so not what I wanted. But I will say, it's supposed to be a sultry romance and a decadent, thrilling mystery. A master storyteller tells her most potent fantasy yet. Nowhere on the back of this does it actually say vampires. If you're looking at this as a sultry romance and a thrilling mystery, then maybe. If you're coming into this expecting vampires and a resurgence of vampires, this ain't it. It just isn't. So yeah, I guess just like altered expectations. You can tell she's trying to bring a thing back, but if you gotta wait till book 2 to kind of get what you were wanting in book 1, this was such a flop. So I'm 1-starring it. Also, I had never read anything by Renee Ahdieh before, so I know other people like her Wrath in the Dawn series. Then I had the biggest surprise read, I think, probably of the year, and that is Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. Kate Alice Marshall, she wrote one other thing, I Am Still Alive, which I have not read before. This is a YA thriller, and it is so good. I had nightmares. I read it in 2 days. I had nightmares. If I didn't think that it was sacrilegious to shove a book in the freezer, I probably would have put this in the freezer. It was so creepy. It was so amazing though. I do have tabs in the side here. All of the yellow tabs are for things that scared me. All of the blue are for everything else. The yellow did kind of die off towards the end because I started to kind of understand and get the kind of scares I was supposed to be facing in this story, but it is creepy. There's a text message that the whole school gets. Do you want to know where Alice went? She went to play the game. You can play too. Find a partner, find a key, find the road. You have 2 days. Sarah is reeling after the loss of her sister. Her sister disappeared a year ago, and her family's kind of fallen apart. She's fallen apart. She's fallen out with her friends, and she thinks that her sister has gone to find Lucy Gallows down this road that mysteriously shows up in the woods. You follow this road, and it leads you to Lucy. And then she starts having dreams about the road, and then this text message comes up, and there are certain rules that you have to follow, and she gets her sister's notebook, and she's following these notes to try to get to her sister, to see if her sister's still alive, because everybody else thinks that she's either run away or is dead. She knows that her sister is with Lucy, and she just needs to get to her. This is so terrifying, but so well written. It is so clever, and it weaves, and there's these turns and twists and plot twists and like scares. This book is pitched as the Hazelwood meets the Blair Witch Project, and it is very much like our world, a portal into this other world, and then you come back. It's also told in multiple different kinds of media, so you'll get transcriptions of text messages, of videos that were caught on cell phones, of interviews, and then the first-hand story of them on the road trying to get to the end. So you do, it reads really quick, and it's super chilling, really, really interesting, and very Blair Witchy, because it is very like mockumentary style, but also like portally. Those are great comparisons. So amazing. I will say that there are parts of this book, particularly the ending of this book, that I think will probably piss some readers off, but for me, this worked on so many accounts. The characters were fantastic. The friend group was amazing. There was diversity within the friend group. There are tons of trigger warnings for this and things that I wanted to talk about. There are trigger warnings for suicide attempts, loss and death of a loved one, death of a sibling, domestic abuse, murder, death in general, also scary monsters, killing, like kind of gore-esque, and just general like haunting ghosty things. For me to 5-star a thriller, which this was a 5-star, is like ridiculous to me. And also, how gorgeous is this cover? And then all I could see now for the longest time was like this gorgeous teal color, it's woods, it's great. No. There's Lucy right on the cover. Didn't see it for like the longest time, and then all of a sudden I was looking at it and I went, oh crap, that's Lucy. By the time you see this for my wrap up for the month, this is available. Read this around Halloween. Like, read this if you have a month of scary books planned. Like, definitely pick this up. It was so good. Probably worst book of the year and one of the best. I finished Sublime by Christina Lauren, which is the second of their backlist YA thrillers that I had to read. I listened to this in audiobook. I will be unhauling this. This one is about a girl who comes back and she be dead. And she is inexplicably drawn to this boy Colin, and Colin is inexplicably drawn to her, but he and others can randomly at times see the girl and sometimes not see her, and Lucy doesn't know why she's back or why some people can see her, why some people can't, why Colin sees her looking differently than everybody else can see her. The school just kind of accepts that, like, oh yeah, ghosts totally exist on campus. And the nurses and just like the teachers even just kind of go like, yeah, we know you're a ghost, but you can stay in class. It is the weirdest thing. But also they realize that the only time that they can like truly be intimate or touch or be on the same plane is when he has near-death experiences. So he just starts like drowning himself in a lake and letting his friend revive him over and over again, repeatedly, a lot, so that he can be with her. It's the weirdest thing. I'm gonna go ahead and 2-star that one. It was not great. And then I was reading The Babysitter's Coven. This one is by Kate Williams. I was buddy reading this with Kate from a Caitlin Duncan author. I forget which one, but she'll be listed down below. I was buddy reading this with Kate, and we had it divided up into 3 different days of reading. I read the first 2 days of reading and then decided to DNF this book. I am so bummed, but this book makes absolutely no sense. This is about 2 teens that are in a babysitter's club. They are 17 going on 18, and they have a babysitter's club. So you assume that the readers for this should be old enough to realize that the babysitter's club is a thing, so that they understand the nostalgia and the references to babysitter's club. They even say like which one of the girls is which one of the original babysitters, etc. And then there's a ton of references, and like there are super quirky dressers, and they keep dressing like these characters with very obscure references. Incredibly obnoxious and over-exaggerated short-term speech in inner monologue, in text messages that just doesn't add up to me. It didn't read cohesive. And then you also have this supernatural element that's happening. And then there's a reference to Buffy, and nobody understands the reference to Buffy, but they were supposed to understand these references to Wino and like Wino Forever and like Winona Ryder like back in the day, but they don't understand Buffy. I don't want to spoil this, but the supernatural aspect of this makes 0 sense. There's no rules at all to this magic or to what is happening. Our main character realizes that she has telekinesis, and then she meets somebody else with another power, and then they realize that they might actually have powers outside of just that. And the spells that they use require like a receipt from a hardware store and a pack of gum and a quartz, and then there's no spell that's actually uttered or like magic that actually takes place. It's just like, hey, I've got a receipt and a tic tac, now I can make dogs speak. They're just like, okay, I'm done with this now, and the spell just ends, but they never actually show why or how or like what is happening. And I started to like really get slumpy and not want to read period at all after trying to read this for 2 days. So I am 2/3 of the way through this book, and I'm DNFing it. Hi everybody, it is Julie, back with a little bit of a reading update because I have finished a few of the things. I think the last time we talked I'd gone over Sublime. I gave Sublime 1 star apparently on my rating, so suck it, I guess. Ice Planet Barbarians number 2, which was like my barbarian alien or some nonsense. I gave that 3 stars. That was fine. It definitely had a smidge of problematic, like I've kidnapped a woman and then undressed and bathed her and like felt her up a little bit while she was unconscious. You know, it's an alien. It comes back around again. But in general, there was a little bit of questionable stuff going on there. I'm in the middle of Reverie and Black Iris, which I'm hoping to finish up before ContemporaryAthon, but I also finished There Will Come a Darkness by Katie Rose Poole, which has so much potential. This is not a standalone book, so there will be more in the series, and I do have all my tabs in this. This follows a large cast of characters who are all trying to survive in a world where people have graces, and which are like different powers. There's like mind, body, soul, heart, blood, something. I forget. But it follows these 5 different characters, I believe, and they could be the ruin or the salvation of this world. There's a group of people that are trying to get rid of the graces in people. They don't want people to have power. The makings of a really great book, and there was some really pretty writing, but it fell super flat for me. So I gave it 3 stars. I didn't love this, and I don't think I'm going to continue. There was like a storyline or 2 that I really, really liked, but there were underdeveloped characters, underdeveloped plots, and character motivations, and I didn't end up loving it as much as I wanted to. I'm going to try to put my thoughts into a Goodreads review, but overall, the most compelling person in this was probably Anton. Jude was kind of interesting and tortured. That's kind of it. The sister dynamic in this fell short for me. Felt like it could have used like a little bit more editing to just refine. Look at how pretty my Crooked Kingdom is up there with my Six of Crows. It makes me so happy. All right, I am here with a vlog style wrap up. It is ContemporaryAthon day 1, but I've got an update for you because I finished a couple books. They're not contemporaries that I need to wrap up. Ignore my unmade bed. I finished Reverie by Ryan DeSaula. Yep. And I 3-starred this. Unfortunately, this was not exactly what I wanted it to be. I think the premise was amazing. The topics that were covered were amazing. I loved the sibling relationship in this because they fought, but they loved each other and they were dedicated to one another regardless of their fights. I really liked that. This follows reveries where people's subconscious comes to life when combined with this like concentration of magic, and then the people are drawn into this made-up world from their subconscious, and only a couple kids stay lucid while in these reveries. And the magic system in it is very confusing. Each world and each reverie is different. By the time you understand kind of what's happening, it's over. The way that they're created is so intense and rich, and then the way that they're undone is so ridiculously easy. So it kind of was one of those situations where the author wrote a convenient way out. Like, I don't think they were really sure how it was supposed to work, so they just went, this is how it happens. And you're like, what? I just think it suffered from underdeveloped characters, underdeveloped magic system, and I do think that Ryan's writing will only get better. I'm really excited to see what he does next. I did tab and annotate, and I did enjoy it, but it was not what I wanted it to be in the end, so I went with 3 stars. And then I read Peter Darling by Austin Chant. This is by a trans author about a trans character, and it is the most cool queer look at Peter Pan and Hook and Tink and the Lost Boys, creating spaces for yourself in a world that doesn't really accept who you are, and finding ways to adjust and adapt and be who you are when other people don't want you to be who you are. And it was really cool. It was a really neat take on things. However, it's very short, barely 200 pages. So I think this suffered from being a little bit underdeveloped, and the parts of this that made it really great were the relationships and the conversations that were taking place. But a lot of this is like battles between the Lost Boys and the pirates, which I understand is like a quintessential Neverland thing, but it was a lot of wasted time on battles and swordplay, where the real meat of this story is in the interactions between characters. I went 3 stars. Again, not fantastic, not horrible. Super queer books back to back. And both were perfectly fine 3-star reads. I tabbed them up. I enjoyed them. I'll keep them both. Now I'm going to go read some contemporary books. Hey guys, it's Julie, and I'm here with the end of my September wrap-up. I wanted to at least go over the books that I did read for ContemporaryAthon because there was a whole bunch of them. And then I have my stats for the month because September was a really good reading month. It was the best reading month I've had all year to date. I read Black Iris by Elliot Wake and gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I really, really want the physical copy so I can annotate it. The writing is stunning. The subject matter is very, very dark, but it was really compelling. Then I read Because You'll Never Meet Me by Lee Thomas, which I've already put in an unhaul pile. That was a solid 3 stars. It was fine. It wasn't great. Wasn't anything special. Look Both Ways by Jason Reynolds was, I believe, a 4-star. It was a middle grade. Really wasn't meant for me, but I do think it's going to work for middle grade students. And then I read Far From the Tree by Robin Benway, and that one I gave 5 stars. This follows 3 siblings as they find each other. They all have the same birth mother, and they've all had different paths in lives with their adoptive parents or foster parents, and they come back together and form a relationship of their own. And it is so heartwarming, so diverse, so beautiful, but whoa man. A lot of tears. And then I read Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, which was a graphic novel, and that was a 5-star, easy graphic novel rating for me. I really, really enjoyed it. Liked the art style, liked the story. If anything, I wish that there would have been more of it in the first volume, but I am perfectly willing to go on to the next volume and wait for the build-up. But it is precious. And then I read Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, which I gave 4 stars. I really liked this for a contemporary, and I'm pretty sure it said in the acknowledgements that this is her first foray into contemporary romance, that before this I think it was that like The House and Sublime, which I think I've also read this month. So you've already heard my thoughts on those. So for their first foray into contemporary, I actually really, really liked it. It's kind of like a second chance romance and it's really precious. I really liked it. Then I read I'm Not Dying With You Tonight by Gilly something and something something. I DNF'd it. I got like 40 pages in. There was word usage I didn't like. There was an age gap romance with a high school student and a 20-year-old. And I don't think it's ever specified that the high school student is actually legal. And then there was also 2 instances of fat shaming, one by each main character, which means it was 1 instance by each author. And I'm not here for that, so I DNF'd that. And then I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. These are all back up on my shelves already. And that one I gave 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a really great contemporary. It happens to feature an interracial relationship, but it never becomes an issue. It also has a fat main character. That's never an issue. It does deal with a main character who has chronic illness. It does cover mental health and therapy. All around, just a really diverse, amazing book, and I thought it was really, really precious. It does feature a little bit of a hate to love, and the hate was never really believable, so that for me was the only thing that kind of fell flat, but the rest of it absolutely worked. Red is adorable, and I stan him with myself, with anybody. So that was everything I read for ContemporaryAthon. I read 7 books, DNF the 8th. All in all, I read 21 books for a total of 6,472 pages. I am really happy with the way that my September reading went. I'm really excited about how my ContemporaryAthon went, that I read 7 books, even though I took like a day and a half off from reading entirely. I guess I'll see how I pan out in October. Stay tuned for that. That's everything for this particular wrap up. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give me a big thumbs up, click subscribe, and I'll see all of you in my next video. Bye guys.